Hello and welcome to the Be Better podcast, where we believe any and every area of your life has a little more potential that you can tap into to change the course and trajectory of your outcomes. My name is Clarissa Parody and I am your host, and I have worked and trained in the worlds of business strategy, leadership, and performance. And I am the person who believes in and creates success where there appears to be ceilings. And if that sounds like something that's in your world, your reality, and something you want more of, welcome to the show. It is a great day to change your life. Let's go. Oh my gosh, today is the day. Let me tell you, I have told this gentleman, Tom Ryan, that I wanted him on my podcast basically from the day I started it. And here we are 10 months later, and we've done it. We've come here, and of all months to do it, it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And Tom is a ninja in this world, and he actually knows a ton of stuff, and he has businesses, he has partnerships, he has done security in many respects. And I cannot wait to have this conversation with you. You've told me some things just as we were talking before we started. There are things you told me that I thought should be headlining news. And so for those of you who are wondering what's happening behind the scenes in the world of security with you and your information and your identity, you might find out some things that maybe you didn't know about that are happening right now. So welcome to the show, Tom. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Clarissa. It's been a while. I mean, we talked about this forever, and it's an interesting time you picked. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's also it's also election season, so it's very busy. Okay, with the worlds of misinformation and fake accounts and hacks going on and all that kind of stuff. So perfect timing.
It is perfect timing. And so just to give a little bit about you, so people, this is when in the world of subject matter experts, Tom is one of them. So Tom, do you want to give us a little bit of a highlight reel of like, what do you know about?
All right. So this is interesting. I got into this industry before it was even an industry. Okay. So literally this is the part that makes everybody laugh. They ask, how'd you get into it? I said, Harry Potter. Everyone's like, what? So Harry Potter, because I was working at Scholastic at the time. Okay, the kids publishing company, Clifford.
I was all about Scholastic. That was that little red bar on the books. I felt like I had the best books. Yep. I was all about Scholastic as a kid.
So we were launching the first Harry Potter website at the time. Okay, yes, I know it was a while ago. And well, some little 16-year-old kid said, well, let me hack this thing. And hacking back then was just like site defacement. It's like going out and doing a graffiti piece on a wall. All right. So that's what he did. And I'm like, interesting. It took me and my friend, maybe about an hour to track down who he was. So after that, we scared him a little bit. And then there was another Chinese American hacker war that nobody knew about. Okay. Mind you, this was like 99.
Just a couple years ago. It was yesterday.
Just a couple of years ago.
I really feel like the 90s was last year.
Oh God, don't start playing 90s music, please.
I won't.
Yeah. So, and that's where the whole journey began. So from that, I just started getting into different things. I was tried working for the government. This government is not for me. I'm like, these guys, the old saying of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. The government is like a sloth. Okay. That's how slow they were moving. I'm like, yeah, this ain't for me. And then I got out and I built in a pen test team. Okay. So if you don't know what pen tests are, these are the guys that, I know it sounds perverted. Penetration tests. I don't know who came up with it. Hackers have very perverted minds. So it's basically, you get paid to break into any company through a hole. Right. So I guess that's where they came up with it. So you're going in, you're breaking in, and I'm like, wow, this is easy. And you get to doing it all day long. And it's like this whole mindset. And how deep can you go? All right. So from that, it's like, all right, found this hole. Let's see how deep we go. Boom. And then you get to these big hacks, and it's like, man, this is like the keys to the kingdom. And there was one place I found a security hole for. It took them 3 years to fix it. It wasn't the company's fault. It was the software's fault.
Wow.
All right. And that's kind of where the whole mindset of application security comes in. So my mindset from there is people are like code.
Okay.
Okay. They're vulnerable.
Walk me through this. Oh yeah.
No, because
We are.
every aspect of security. So I've worked cyber, I've worked physical, you name it. I've worked the code development. There's three things you have to ask yourself. Am I vulnerable?
Mhm.
Am I exploitable? And how do I protect myself? All right. People are like code because, you look at a person and you see things. Are they empathetic? Are they sympathetic? All these ways are, people, exploit things. And the person who said this best was Harry Houdini. Okay. With the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes.
This is so true. I mean, think about everything. Like even like as a child, Santa Claus, your parents, I don't know if you told your kids that Santa Claus was real. My parents loved pretending to be Santa Claus and they would make the whole thing happen. But I heard what I thought to be true. My parents made it look as if it was real. And let me tell you, when I discovered it was a lie, it was a very sad day. It was a very sad day. But it happens in every facet, whether it's, is this healthy for me? Is sugar bad for me? Is salt bad for me? It's not limited to anything. It's sleight of hand, really.
Yep. Well, you were silly to bring it up. I would have been exploiting that forever. It's like, you want me to believe that? Sure. Am I going to believe it? No, but I'll enjoy the gifts. But I mean, come on.
I thought I mean, I had younger sisters, so I got to benefit from that discovery that Santa was not real. But I was like, so there's no reindeer. They don't fly. There's no North Pole. I mean, there's a North Pole, but it's not like it's not how I envisioned it. And so, I mean, I got at least another like 4 years out of it before Santa stopped coming.
Mushroom. You could take a mushroom and the North Pole will appear.
A little psychedelic adventure. Be like, hey, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some of the stuff you post. I mean, I'm like, wow, she can imagine a North Pole was there. Like, wow. No, I mean, and that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. I mean, because all we hear is people getting social engineered and like, oh, I want to get into cybersecurity. Where do I start? I'm like, social engineering. Okay. Because let's be realistic. I always say it, social engineering is like being the angry girlfriend. Okay. Or the woman, because they're born with it. They learn how to manipulate daddy when they're like a year old.
Oh, okay, to be clear, Tom has a daughter. He's learning
I
this.
do. And that's why I can attest to this. I mean, my little munchkin, this girl is like the master at it. She wants something. She walks up to me, gives me a hug, and gives this little shake. And it's like, what do you want, Emma? And then I never know what she gets until I go and look at Instagram. And I'm like, hon, why is our 2-year-old daughter wearing Versace and Prada?
I financed it. What do you want from me?
Exactly. No financing. It's just, I'm like, you might as well just get her into modeling so she gets it for free.
Yeah, like get some promotion deals here.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it always starts off,
Yeah.
And it's like, where else do I start? And a lot of people don't realize the talents you need to get in this industry are embedded in you. I mean, I guarantee you, I can turn you into a cybersecurity professional in 6 months.
No way.
Yep.
So if you were to start that process, what would be one of the things you would teach me?
So first of all, you're a super extrovert. Unlike me, the only reason why I'm able to talk to you is because we've known each other. Me, I trust no one. No one.
Hey, you know what? I mean, for an extroverted person, I also trust no one. I'm like, I will run the room. I'm the social engineer of the situation so that I feel safe. So yes, okay, great.
All right. So most of the hackers you will meet are introverts. Some are sort of kind of like omniverts because when you get in a room full of people like-minded, you'll talk a little bit. But social engineering, they were true professionals. I tell them, have fun with that one. I'm like, when you get those fake text messages, I just have fun with those. And everyone's like, why am I getting all of these? I'm like, dude, don't you read the news? And I realize, the news I read is a lot different than the news they read. They go to Fox and then CNN, and I'm looking at hacker news.
Right. It's a niche news. And it's just interesting to me though, that like, because so much of our lives is digital now, that this wouldn't be some of the crazy focal points available or like in the forefront of news media. Like it baffles me.
Yeah. Perfect example is last year. So probably one of the biggest security exploits that came out. I remember it clearly, December 7th. Okay. It was the day this exploit that came out was called Log4j or Log4Shell. And basically it was an open source exploit that pretty much shook up the world. Well, the security community, the rest of the world didn't know about it. Now, to give an example of how bad this was, this impacted about 60 to 70% of every device connected to the internet.
I had what. So what happened?
So essentially what happened was, when I worked at HP, okay, we did a talk about this at one of the big hacker conferences. Our security research team went and spoke about it at Black Hat and talked about how this would be done. This was 2016. It didn't come out until 2021, the actual exploit. And the way it happened is it came out on a tweet. And then everybody noticed it and we're like, oh. And then they came out what's called the POC, a proof of concept, to show how it works. And everybody went crazy. So this is one of the problems that we had. So everybody's like, you have to put the developers in charge of security. I'm like, okay, never believed in that, because they always want the easy button. To give an example of how bad this was, I watched a lot of companies, and a lot, to where they had to go in their whole backlog of what was called suppressed vulnerabilities because somebody said it was a false positive, meaning it's not real. The developers had no holiday break, and some of them are still fixing it because they had millions of them suppressed, saying they were false positives.
That's not good. So
No.
T, with this tweet that came out on Twitter, how did people, like, what did it say so that people knew what it was, the exploit was?
So everybody was like, well, nobody's watching me. I don't care. I'm in my own little circle on Twitter. No, man, you got people watching all this stuff like you wouldn't believe, keyword searches, everything else, and then you have bots out there. All right, I'll call them intel bots because their whole purpose is to collect intelligence. Okay. And those are the accounts that you see will follow you, but never tweet anything. Okay. That would be an intel collection bot. And the purpose for it is they're curious about things that you're saying. So this one account randomly popped up and tweeted out the exploit. It was in GitHub, which is a code repository. And then everyone's like, boom, boom, boom. And it was like, wow. And that fast they zoomed in and like, you literally had people doing tests. So that came out on December 7th. There was a check to make sure if you were vulnerable and exploitable in all the software by December 9th. So you had everybody testing for all of that pretty much until Christmas break. And by then they're like, okay, here is everything you have to go and fix because this is where we're in trouble.
So who did it, like you said, 60 to 70% of devices connected to the internet had vulnerabilities. So like my phone, would that be something that was impacted? And if so, what would that mean for someone like me?
iPhones would not. So Macs and iPhones were not impacted by it, but some of the software that you put on it would be.
Right. Okay.
So for instance, if you're a developer and you put, say, like Apache Tomcat, for your website there, because you're a developer and you're running stuff, well, that was vulnerable and exploitable. If every website out there running Apache, same thing. Wow. Okay. So odds are almost every WordPress site out there because it's running on Apache.
Right. That's okay. So if you had a WordPress website, you might have been vulnerable. So
no, here's the scarier part.
Oh no. So
guess what else has Apache running on it?
I don't know if I want to know.
Pacemakers and insulin pumps.
No way.
Yes.
It is unbelievable the devastating impacts that can happen. I don't know if it was with you that I follow Tom around. He talks about things and I follow him and I listen. But was it you who talked about when someone shut down the internet at Google for like for like 3 seconds on a random Sunday at like 2 in the morning when there was nothing happening anywhere in the world with stock. But you could devastate so many things by removing or shutting down access or messing with a software. A pacemaker, insulin pumps, like there's a lot of people on those. That's not uncommon these days.
No.
And
So when you hear about it, there's two different types of threats for that. So the first threat would be, okay, if they actually attack the target. Well, the bigger threat is when they attack the hospital. And usually what that is, it's ransomware, to where you have to pay something to get access back. And that's where on the back end, there's lots of talks with the insurance companies and everything else as to whether or not they're going to cover it. Because these attackers, when they go with ransomware, they want millions of dollars. But
there's money and hacking.
There's 40 to 60 million dollars sometimes to get your stuff back.
And do people pay it?
They do. And there was actually a case in the UK where they didn't, and people died. Like I believe there was a young girl that died about it. It's like, wow.
That's
because they had no way to access the information that they needed for to take care of that person. So think of it, if they can't access the information, then they don't know your allergies. That's one scenario.
Like I come from the generation where we started using computers halfway through our lives. And so I'm still a big pen and paper gal. And let me tell you, as much as I love having everything access on my phone, and I can leave my house with it and pay for things and order food and basically get what I need. If the battery dies or I smash my phone or whatever, then what? And so to me, I can't quite, I don't know if I'm confident enough yet to relinquish pen and paper or cash. And that's not to be I do have a tinfoil hat I bust out every now and again, but I don't think that's tinfoil hatty. I'm like, no, you have a backup. It's called contingency. Like, why would you do this? I have a question. You mentioned bots, and I have so many questions because I've heard about bot farms, that all those hackers on Instagram. I know you participated in seeing if your Instagram could get hacked by those Bitcoin people. And I guess I don't really understand them. I didn't like Intel bots. Now that I know about them, and it sounds like something out of Stranger Things or a nightmare. But like, what kind of bots? What should we be watching out for?
Right. So there's tons of different types. Okay.
Oh, great.
So at work, okay, it's technically considered a bot, but when you go to work, they'll use things like everything social. Okay, because they want you to promote things that are going on at the office.
Okay. Technically,
that's considered a bot because it's taking all the information from work and you're using your accounts for influence. Okay. There's a pro and a con to it. Yes, you have all these people pushing it for influence. The con is the reach. If you notice, if you do an organic post versus one through a platform like that, you'll notice your organic reach gets a lot more views than actually using software like that. That's one case. Then the other case, there's influence bots. Okay, so that's to where it floods everything to make it look like something is trending on, say, Twitter. Okay, or LinkedIn. You really want to push a story, you create all these bots, and then you can make that trend. And then guess what? By trending, people think it's a lot more believable. So to me, I think I started experimenting with this way back when, probably 2011. And it's when the whole Occupy movement started. Remember all those little lovely protesters everywhere? I found them annoying. So I said, all right, I looked at it from a couple of different angles. I was approached to it because I looked at it and saw that all these people are gathering in one area. And I saw on Al-Shabaab website, it's basically a terrorist website, that they were promoting these people to go gather at these gatherings. I'm like, oh crap, something's going to go wrong. So I went down. In my case, it was over Brookfield over in New York City, and just to blend in the role, I dressed like a homeless person, so nobody knew who I was. And then I would watch everything that would go on. And then I went to some of the protester meetings, and then I watched these older school, like Woodstock generation protesters. teaching the younger crowd what to do. And then that's when I learned how people started to learn how to control the message, meaning you take out your cell phone, you record it, and then when you publish it, you're only publishing the part of the narrative that you want people to see. All right. So that's controlling the story, controlling the message. So everyone's like, well, I heard this on this news channel or this news channel. I'm like, you know what? Go find the original recording and watch the whole thing, because I don't care which way you lean politically. They cut snippets to try and influence you to do certain things.
There are sound bites that can make people look like the opposite of what they are and who they are and what they stand for. And so when I was in university, what I really feel like I walked away with was I had some really great professors who taught me about critical thinking, and I'm looking at original sources.
Mhm.
I can remember the advice they said was never trust the news. You can't go because and I didn't understand it at the time because I had no concept of politics. I wasn't interested. I did not care. I had grades to get, don't you know? So I was like, what's the difference between CNN and Fox? I don't know their news and their anchors and they're in suits. Like, what do you want from me? I'm not watching it. But original source content is so important. And I can remember there were people, and I'll actually use this as an example. There were people that I thought, like, the impression I had of Joe Rogan was so wrong. I thought he was lent a certain way. I thought he was a Trump supporter. He is not. And I didn't know. And until I actually listened to him talk and like see something in its full capacity, not just a 30-second or 10-second soundbite, I was wrong. And there's other people that have been like that for as well. And it's just like, you got to look at the full original source. And even then, like, whatever, use a different person, use a methodology, use a science paper. You can lie with statistics and you're telling the right statistics, but if you frame them in the right way, you can support your argument. I can use the same data and present it in two different ways. And the crazy thing is I was taught that in school. How could you use this data to say pro this? How could you use the same data and say not anti this? And it was shocking. And it really gave me a line of sight into, you can use data and information if you're taking it yourself and putting it in your own work to say whatever you believe is true. That it's open for interpretation. So it really made me mindful of reading other people's information. And I'm that person who, when I read something, I check the citations and I look up the papers because I'm like, I don't know. I'd like to see the original research, please. It's just fascinating to me. And so that influence bots, that's part of that whole social engineering you were talking about.
Yes.
Before we continue down the bot path, do you want to kind of explain to the listeners what you mean by social engineering?
All right. So social engineering is basically goes back to Harry Houdini. With the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes. Now, the reason why I always use that phrase, when you listen to it, okay, it's the premise of marketing. It's a premise of sales. It's also the premise of deception. Okay.
Fun times in paradise.
Right. So the reality of it is there are three different categories. Sales and marketing complement each other. Okay. But the deception piece is where then you get the concept of the snake oil salesman, where, working in sales, you get to realize, well, it's only maybe about 10, 15% of those snake oil salesmen. And that's usually because they're not good at their job. Okay. But it's at 10 or 15% that ruin it for everybody.
Absolutely. I would have told you like that salespeople were disgusting, but that's not. And I look back and I have so many people that do sales in my family that I'm like, I don't think they're disgusting, but it's just a couple people who ruin it for everybody.
Yep. And that's kind of the reality of it. So the social engineering piece, came back and everyone's like, well, what's an example? So this part's going to make you laugh. I had one to do and I had failed. I remember this one because I had failed on it. Okay. And it's because I didn't take things into context. Okay. Where I was. So it was an engagement at a Bible Institute. So I used the standard techniques, finances, fraud, porn, all that stuff. Well, doing that at a Bible Institute, guess what? They turned everything in. They didn't try and put it in their computers or anything else, because the purpose was to get it and put it in the computers or take over the computer. They turned everything in. I'm like, wow. I'm like, now if I put this as religious music, it probably would have taken a different role.
Okay, so I feel like I am not fully tracking. So you go to a Bible institute, and what did you do?
So usually what you're doing is you're leaving stuff around to see who's going to take it and put it in their computer. And then you take over the computer to allow you to dig deeper.
So it's like when a USB stick has malware on it and you use it, they're like, oh, it's a free thing that we're giving you as a sales promo. And then, yeah, okay. And people turned it in?
Yeah, they turned it in as being suspicious. I was like, wow. And I always say, I mean, to really be good at anything, you have to fail. You have to, because your biggest learning lessons are from failing. Right?
Yeah. You want to get better quickly, fail fast, fail forward.
Right. And that's how I think I learned that way back in high school on the swim team. It's like, yeah, you're like, how did I freaking lose? I may have cheated a few times. I may have taken like liquid heat and put it on me to make the water glide off of me and move faster. And then you realize, don't do that because you get caught. You know, different things like that.
How do you get caught with liquid heat on you?
Oh, easy. They smell it on you.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that, I guess it has probably a menthol or like.
Yeah, it's like icy hot.
Icy. Oh, yeah, you can't. That's aromatic. That is not essential oil. That I will say.
No, because as soon as you hit the water, you're warm, you go faster. You're like, oof.
Wow. I didn't know you were a swimmer. There are so many cool things you do. I feel like we're jumping around, but I am okay.
I played hockey too.
And you played hockey. And then you also, like, your career is just, this guy's insane. I wish you all could know and be best friends with Tom, except Tom is an introvert and does not want that.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. So your biggest takeaway from swimming was that fail fast.
Oh, but it got me to the nationals every year. But yeah.
Right.
You know, I was just into it. Between swimming, 3 sports through high school, or, you know, we're always swimming, hockey, and baseball.
Wow. What was your favorite?
Hockey.
Hockey. You could have been in Canada, man. You could have been in Canada. You fit right in.
I could never be a Gretzky. Sorry.
You could never be a Gretzky.
No.
That's okay. That's okay. No, I feel like
because he was actually playing when I played. So.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow. You look fantastic. How old are you? Don't tell me. I don't need to know.
I'm 28.
You're 28. You look fabulous.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Now that goes back to the deception piece. Now the real trivia question for you is to figure out why I said 28.
Don't put me on the spot like that. Why did you say 28? Is that sleight of hand? You're trying to draw my attention to something?
No.
Okay. Is that your birth date?
No. When I got into cybersecurity.
Oh, it's when you were 28 when you got into cybersecurity. Okay, so can you lead me? We'll come back to social engineering and bots. What led you into
Harry Potter?
Oh, Harry Potter. Yeah, we didn't finish that story though. So Harry Potter, and then you did a penetration, and then.
I mean, if I were to sit there, I mean, this podcast would go on for hours.
Keep it like high level. Like what happened? How explain the Harry Potter connection?
All right, so we were developing the Harry Potter website.
Right, the website, and the guy did the graffiti thing.
Right, he defaced it. We tracked him down. It was a 16-year-old kid. How
did you find him?
His IP address. Because back then there weren't even people weren't smart enough to put firewalls at their house. So you always had your real IP address, and then people would host websites at their house. So it kindly had his information and his phone number on the website.
Oh my God. Oh my God. And then what happened?
We may have given him a call.
Oh my God. Oh, right. And you shook him down, and then wow. Okay. And then you go from those penetrations, you do a bunch of others, you've exposed all that. You actually had a huge thing that people are doing now, you said.
The Robin Sage thing?
The Robin Sage thing. This is a fascinating story.
So the reason why it was Robin Sage, I picked it specifically for the name. All right. Robin Sage was a training exercise to join Army Rangers. All right. So you had to pass Robin Sage as one of the qualifications. I picked it to see how many people would realize that, well, the name. Two, that if you were to do a background check on them, they all come up to be men that are over 60 years old. But I used a picture of a woman that was in her 20s.
Please all note the social engineering happening in this experience that Tom is creating.
Right. So what I did was I created a bunch of persona. I created her persona across 3 different platforms: Facebook,
Okay.
Twitter, and LinkedIn.
So she looked like a real person.
Right. And then I put her working at Cyber Command, which was really Netwarcom at the time because it was Navy. And I purposely left some mistakes to see who would pick up on it. Because my key thing was always how do you do your research?
Right.
Okay? When you're interacting with people, do you know who that person is? Or do you just go by what they've posted?
Right.
All right. And I even just went over this in my clubhouse room on Wednesday, because there was a whole big gaffe around that. You don't know the people you're talking to. At what point do you decide to do a background check and verify everything? But then there's this lovely thing called OSINT, open source intel. And what that'll allow you to do is do things like Google dorking. So when this person says this, can I find anything? Can I find this? Can I find this? Now, go back to the social engineering piece.
Yeah.
Okay. What, if you're not sure about somebody and you meet them in person, what would be the first thing you would ask them for?
Am I on a date or am I just meeting their ID?
Oh, can I get your business card?
Can I get business cards? Okay, so gentle ID.
Right. The gentle,
not real ID, gentle ID.
Right. Because the worst thing you can give somebody, there's 2 worst things you can give to people. The worst thing is your business card. And then the most worst thing you could ever give anybody is your resume.
Oh boy. Tom, what are we going to do? I've already done that.
But that's the point. Unless you know how to use that information, that's the key thing. So,
okay, so what I have a question about that. What makes it the 2 worst things that they can give you? I mean, it's a ton of your identity, I'm guessing.
Okay, so you need 3 key things to identify a person.
Okay.
You've just given them those 3: name, email, phone number.
Yeah. Damn it.
Now, with the email and phone number, you can put it up and see if they've ever been in a breach.
Oh.
Look it up, and then you can download the breach data from that and get their passwords at that time. Now, if you're not accustomed to constantly changing your passwords, now they may be able to break into your email. If they break into your email and you're not using 2-factor authentication, now they can take over all your social media. Hence, going back to the Robin Sage thing.
Oh my God. I'm really glad I have 2-factor authentication. Let me tell you, it's a pain in my ass and I hate it every time. But I have, well, I don't know. It's some off
There's
thing.
3 different types. You could do text, you could do
text,
email, or you could do authenticator.
I have I have 2 forms of authentication. One that we use for our internal service for work, we use an authenticator.
Yep.
And for everything else, I use text.
You should use an authenticator for everything.
For everything? Okay. Oh God. Authenticator. Okay, we'll come back to it, but everyone listening, use an authenticator for everything. You heard it from Tom, and he saves people's lives digitally. So authenticator for everything. Is it because someone can redirect texts? Is this a thing?
Okay, so if your email, exactly. So if you get a SIM swap, what's called a SIM swap, they can clone and capture all your texts.
And you know what? I mean, I would normally think you're crazy, but I actually believe this. You know what else is happening now? People can clone car keys. So I had my car broken into, and it has that electric.
What kind of car do you have?
I have a Honda.
Okay, so it's not that bad. Be happy you don't have a BMW.
Why? Are they worse?
Probably the most hackable to bluejacking. I actually have a video of guys breaking into my neighbor's cars doing a bluejack.
What's a bluejack?
So
Bluetooth?
It's a because those key fobs you have run off of Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can intercept the frequency when you hit the key to go to the door and then just pop their doors open.
Well, that's too bad for people who own those. I'm going to advise one of my friends. That is crazy. Yeah, but it's remarkable what's clonable. Like you think that this thing that has your password, that has your Face ID, that has your authenticator, that whatever is secure. It would not, it's not, it's a lie. Like, do not, you have that, it's a lie.
I'll give you a perfect example with your phone. I don't care if it's an iPhone or an Android. Guess what?
What?
Most people use their face authenticator to get on there. Guess what
Yes.
happened during COVID? You couldn't use it. So you're sitting there typing your PIN in front of security cameras that are around you everywhere. So every security camera's picked up your PIN, typing it in.
Gross. And I would love to, like, this is people, before people get into the world of this sounds crazy. It's not crazy. This is a guy. Okay. Tom has worked for extremely high profile political officials. And he's done so this Robin Sage thing. Once we finish the story, we'll go back on track. It is remarkable what he's been able to achieve and what he can see in the back end, because he is basically a cyber break and enter specialist. Like he's done things. He's risked his own Instagram identity, if you will, to see if he could outsmart the people who are hacking through that Bitcoin. When you know, everyone, all your friends are like, hey, I just deposited 150,000. He allowed that to happen, chose knowingly to click the link to engage with an account, and his account got hacked. Did you ever recover it?
Yeah, I did. It took a month.
It took a month, but you didn't have to pay them.
No, you had to be brutal about it to Facebook.
Oh.
Because what they'll try and do, there's a couple of different ways. So I complained about it enough on Clubhouse that I knew they were listening for the sole reason. The exact things I said to fix the problem on Clubhouse ended up being the fix.
Wow.
Okay. So what I said should be the fix. So the first thing they had is, they'll go by your old email and your old phone, your old email used to create the account and the phone number used to create the account. That didn't work because somebody already changed all that information. Didn't work. The problem is, as you're going to get it back, they only respond to you between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. So that tells you you're in the area of the world where their support is. Okay. Next problem you'll run into, it just kept being a pain in the butt every day. Then they tell you to use facial authentication. Well, two problems. If you haven't used your picture on your social media account, it won't work. Or if you've lost weight,
Yes.
the facial authentication doesn't work. Wow. So in that time frame, I had lost about 60 pounds. Wow. So the facial authentication did not work.
That is so interesting.
All right. So then I was saying, well, the quick fix for it, so you don't have to use so much support, is maybe have all your close friends on the social media verify that your account is hacked, and then they help you get your account back faster.
Yeah.
Right. And that ended up being the fix. It took about a month for that to happen.
Wow.
Because the key thing is, they don't want to fix everybody's account. Let's not forget how many accounts they have. And then also, to them, it doesn't matter if your account is hacked because you're still an active user, even if it's controlled by an account takeover or not. And it's only about the numbers.
Right. It's about what isn't about the numbers, right? Okay. So going back to Robin Sage, you've created this profile. This person you're now presenting as a female is on 3 platforms, and you've put her on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and you've left little Easter eggs, little clues to show that this isn't the same person. And if someone was looking and doing research, they would know.
Yep.
And the purpose of Robin Sage, you named it after an exercise from the military. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the purpose that you were using this profile for was to essentially
show the dangers of social media.
Show the dangers of social media. Wow. Okay.
So the reason why I picked the
people for it.
The reason why I picked the female is, let's face it, guys are suckers.
Okay.
All right. The other thing was, I also got to
notice how I said okay and didn't agree.
I agree.
I'm being gentle.
No, and then the other thing is that for the whole time I did that, I got to experience the bullshit that women go through.
Interesting.
All right. And the worst part is, I still have all the screenshots of everything that was messaged back then. Wow. So the fake account got job offers and everything else.
Wow.
Now, and where I pissed people off is I picked the 3 most influential people in cybersecurity at the time as people to connect to, and they connected. And everyone's like, oh, but whatever. I'm like, the purpose wasn't to make a fool of them. The
Right.
purpose was to actually use their influence. And somebody sees, oh, you're connected to the 3 most people in the industry.
Yeah, it gives you
Not to
it
say
gives you
they're
social status. It gives you
right.
leverage. It gives
It
you
gives you leverage.
credibility.
But people weren't thinking that way. And that's where some of the drama came in. Like, they wouldn't let me talk at Black Hat ever since I did that. I submitted talks and everything else. And it was like, whatever. Now, after that, it's like, I'm like, it's kind of funny they do it because it's taught in 28 different universities right now in their cybersecurity and their homeland security programs. If you were to go to academia.edu, there's over 200 papers written on it, referencing to it.
Wow.
Okay. And it's referenced, I think it's in like 40 different books. And you know how much I made on it?
$0.
$0.
Yeah, that sounds about right. When you go and influence and change the world, but people, when they get when vulnerabilities get exploited, people sometimes have a harder time when you're right and they're wrong. It's actually, hey, Kate, Harry Potter moment, when Percy finally realizes that everyone else was right. So he excommunicated himself from his family, being like, the Dark Lord Voldemort has not returned, whatever his name was, Lord Voldemort. And he still didn't talk to them until like the 7th book or something. And it's like, well, and Dumbledore said something about like, it's, sometimes easier to stay mad at someone when you're wrong and they're right. And you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's the same thing that's happening here. And it's, I mean, okay, fine, it's a fiction book, but it's still about, I mean, ultimately it's based on human experience, right? So you look at it and you're like, okay, well, wouldn't it be insane for you to not speak at Black Hat when you were able to reveal that amount of information, those revelations that came to be, that showed how humans are so susceptible to the influence of others? That is powerful stuff, and crazy that that it would ever get you on a list where it's like, maybe he shouldn't talk. He might find out our vulnerabilities. You're just too good, man. I don't know what to tell you. You're just too good.
But the problem is now I also have the reputation of, hey, isn't that the guy who poses a female on the internet?
Well, I mean,
and then it puts the mindset in everybody's head from back in the AOL days.
Oh,
it's
yes.
like where everybody says, oh, you're dream girl, and then they show this big giant fat guy behind the computer.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the reality of it. But it's like the funniest part is nobody, before teaching this in any of the universities, not one of them called to ask me, hey, could I have the slide deck for that or anything? But the few people that did have it, and the people that did know about it was what was epic, because it was literally 98 slides.
Wow.
And it showed the whole process. It showed the whole thing of EXIF data and images and how EXIF data can be used to track your location. Okay. And everyone's like, okay, where was that ever used? Well, there was a hacker that went by the handle Trick, who, he got busted by MI6 for making terroristic threats on phone calls. So they arrested him. And then all of a sudden he flees the country and becomes the cyber caliphate for ISIS. He posts one picture with the EXIF data and he got droned.
Wow.
I mean, everyone's like, okay, so who cares about the EXIF data? Well, think of a woman that's gone through a bunch of bullshit and all the EXIF data. There were apps out there like Creepy that would go through like Twitter and everything else and track your whole movement based on that EXIF data in an image that you posted.
So how do people find, so for someone like me who's like, this sounds terrifying, how do I manage this? Where is my EXIF data? Is it, so you said it's on pictures? Is it deletable? Where does this even live?
Right. So you can have EXIF scrubbers on your phone or your laptop that'll pull all that data out before you post it. The other thing that I always tell people is, you know what? You go on that vacation that you freaking love. Don't
Yeah.
post pictures from there.
No.
Wait until you get home.
Yes. What's funny is I didn't learn that from cybersecurity, but now that I know that, that is so interesting. And it also makes me wonder, like, when you have a device that you're taking photos on, and it's automatically uploading to something like, I don't know, Google Photos or a
Mhm.
cloud storing app for your photos, is there a risk there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The risk is you didn't secure it.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I do know plenty of people that lock their accounts well enough to where it won't be shared anywhere else.
Right.
But if you don't know the steps to securing it, that's where the problem comes in. You know,
Right. And how many
like
people
for
actually
instance,
know?
I'll give you a perfect example. Say you were a plastic surgeon to the
Okay.
Hollywood stars.
Right.
You had all of this stuff stored, and the hackers knew that. Do you think you are not a target?
You're definitely a target.
Right, but they don't think like that. Doctors look at, hey, I'm the best plastic surgeon in the world.
Right.
Okay. I'm a small business. Why would anybody hack me? But they forget the most important thing. Who are you related to? Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you work with? You can have this nice little boutique shop, and you could have 3 high-profile customers that come in there all the time. They're not going for your business. They're going for any information you have on them. You know,
Wow.
you have to look at it that way. I mean, I've dealt with cases where it was actually the competitor that hacked into them.
Shut up.
No, it was a hostile takeover going on, and the competitor was hacking in. And I thought they were going to be smart and hack in from a different country. But, logs tell everything, and it was easy to try. It literally took me a while to figure out who it was. And I'm like, oh, this is who it is. This is how they did it. And the reason why you're able to find out is because there was an exploit somewhere else that allowed you to verify all that information.
There's so much about technology I don't know.
I
I'm
like
like,
to
oh my
call it
God.
technology without limits. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
how often do you see these cryptocurrency places getting hacked? It feels like it happens often, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really does.
Now, here's the biggest problem with it. The platforms they write the code on, it could be like Solidity, which does smart contracts and things like that. There's no tools to test the security on it, and there's no tools to monitor the security on it. So how are you supposed to detect if you're vulnerable or exploitable? And how are you supposed to protect yourself if you don't know those two things?
You can't.
Exactly. So when
There's no
somebody
way.
comes in, it's game over.
Wow. Wow. You can really dance. That is okay. So we've
I
talked.
didn't even go into car hacking yet.
Okay, but what else? I mean, this is just remarkable. I feel like, okay, let's finish Robin Sage. You make this, you create some social profiles, you've got the Robin Sage to connect with some really high profile cybersecurity people. So she looks
Yep.
credible. She looks trustworthy. She's beautiful. And now she's been getting job offers.
Yep.
So what happens next?
So to give her more street credibility, I started publishing exploits under her name.
Oh. So were you doing was it an actual exploit and you were doing it and pretending it was her?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
And
I
then
mean, I can literally do this on a weekly basis.
wow.
I mean, there's a whole black market for selling these exploits, which most people don't realize. Like for instance, the next 0-day exploit, everyone's like, well, when would it come out? It's usually by the holidays. The reason why is because that's when people have their guard down. Well, guess what's coming up in a month?
Right? The beginning of
Right.
6 weeks of distraction.
Uh-huh.
Wow. So after you published these exploits, if you were to talk about that case study a little bit and what happened, like what happened next? Like what was the result of Robin Sage?
So a couple of people started digging into her, and I don't take away their credit. And then how did I deflect it? All right. So the key thing was 2 people figured out who it was. So what I had to do was I had to turn Robin Sage into a troll and say, oh, really? And then I would bring up stuff about them that I knew from doing quick OSINT on them. And as you bring this stuff up, people, it's a nervous reaction, then they back off.
Right. Because it's a threat. And so it's fight, flight,
Right.
fight, flee, whatever,
Mhm. So they start backing up
Wow.
like, all right, let's not get into this conversation. And that's what happened with a lot of this. So then I took all I did with Robin Sage and took that to the Occupy stuff. I
Yeah.
even used the Robin Sage Journey Occupy stuff to, just to trigger a few people. And what I started doing was I took all their posts and I spun up a little bot army,
Oh my God.
because what most people don't realize, the best tools out there for intelligence are marketing tools.
That's too bad. That's too bad. Okay. So that kind of brings us back into the world of bots. So you spun up an army of bots, and were these designed to be influencing bots, like bots that influence other people?
It was, and it was meant to be a blocker bot.
What's a blocker bot?
So basically, what you're able to do is you're able to take those bots. With those bots, okay, every time there was an OWS or Occupy Wall Street hashtag, I cross-hashtagged it with porn. Now, do you know why I did that?
No, I don't, but I feel like it's going to be very interesting. I feel like it would link, based on what we've talked about before, it would link those two things together, and it would flood their feeds with things that are related. Would that be because it does the system
So what
assume?
it would do is, then if you're going to look at it from work, you're not going to be able to see it because your work proxy would block porn. If you were to look at it from school, you could not see it because that work proxy would block porn. So it's essentially meant to control the message that you cannot see.
Wow. And so this literally could be done with anything. This could be, when you mentioned election season, I'm like, this could skew what people like what you get to see and consume. You think your newsfeed is yours,
Right.
but it's not.
Right. Back then, it took about, to make something trend on Twitter back then, it took about between 200 and 400 tweets to make a trend. Now it takes about 4,000.
Wow.
So if you were to create up, and now the worst part is nowadays, it's designed where you can spin them up so fast. Everyone's going to think you have this massive farm of stuff. You could pretty one person with enough devices or not. Technology's changed so much. You could spin all these up in different Docker containers and literally do it from right here, right in front of me, where I have about 8 different computers.
Wow. And so what would be the motivation for like if someone has 8 computers in front of them, or they're able to have their own little, essentially a bot farm, like a mini one, a tiny one. What would be the motivation for it?
So a bunch of different things. So great you bring that up. So say you are my competitor.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't like you. So I'm going to use that bot farm to interact with all your tweets that are part of your marketing campaign. And that's going to burn up your marketing budget.
Oh yeah, because your cost per click, if you have a $1,000
It
budget, a
could be a
$10,000
cost per
budget,
click, a cost
yeah,
per response, cost for whatever.
and there'll be no conversions. It'll just
Right.
be
Right.
wow. And so for groups like Twitter and Instagram, I notice a lot of bots as well. Like there's just
Oh, Instagram is blown up out of control ever since
I
they
have
had this cross tagging stuff.
it's
I joke about this. I
crazy.
said, because I've brought up this stuff about cross hashtagging with porn before.
Yes.
It feels like that's what my Instagram feed has become, because it's all that gets cross matched.
Yeah. I like it was, I mean, you know me reasonably well. The stuff that has been recently appearing on my feed. I'm like, why are they sending me girls in mesh suits? Like there's nothing about what I follow. But when I look at the hashtags, because I was trying to figure out what it is, I'm also nervous to keep it on my screen because I'm like, well, it does it considering me engaging with it, that I'm interested in this. But I'm like, I got to figure out how this isn't gonna happen because I don't care to see it. It's not for me. I don't want it. And a lot of it, like it'll even have business hashtags on it. Or like I'm like, that is fascinating. Or they'll have like collaborations with accounts that were originally I'll use the word clean, like safe for work, essentially accounts. and they're no longer that way. I'm like, how do you do this? Why? It was just very interesting.
Yeah, half the
I don't
accounts I
like it.
literally watch are from the photographers in the area and the great pictures that they take.
Yeah.
But this is one, there's like two of them I watch all the time because they have like the best photography pictures of everything in New York City, from the Statue of Liberty up to the edge,
Wow.
and it's like, wow. And then you're getting all this other BS. It's like, dude, I don't want to see this.
No.
I'm like, especially, oh, great, I'm going to look at this while I'm on a work call. And it's like, where'd this come from?
Yeah. No. No thanks. No thank you. That is so interesting. So with the blowing up of bots, I guess one of my questions is how many bots are there? Like, I mean, it feels like there's
It's
more bots than
impossible to count.
people. Yeah.
Because here's the biggest problem. Nobody has sat down and said, okay, what is a bot? Because there's so many definitions to it. Like the first one I actually saw built, this, I think it was going back, it was probably about 2008. Canadian friend of mine, Seth Hardy. He was so sick of Twitter, he literally had a tweet every time he flushed the toilet.
Oh my God. So, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he took like a Raspberry Pi and hooked it up, and every time he flushed the toilet, it would tweet, because that's what he thought of Twitter at the time.
That's funny. And did it tweet something specific, or did
It would tweet different things. It was
okay.
like,
wow. So how, like, that is, so there's no real way to know if you're engaging with someone real. You can use bots to influence, bots to block.
you can take AI, and nowadays the joke is you can take AI and have conversations with it.
You can. I have seen this.
What, with
It's,
United Airlines? And
well, yeah, but like if you look at, so for example, I think there's an app, it's designed to essentially act as a therapist. It's all over the interwebs. I believe, I don't want to say names, but I'll tell you later. And basically it asks you questions, it checks in on you and you respond. And people will be like, I feel so heard. I feel like this, it really understands me. I'm like, you have now created an emotional attachment to essentially a question generating app that validates your feelings. And this reminds me, is it the movie Her? Is that what it is? Where the guy falls in love with his robot AI voice. And this goes to show that so much about connection and chemistry or perceived chemistry can be the sensation, perception, and experience of connection. So AI
don't
could
worry,
really
it's gone a
influence
step
that.
beyond that. And don't
Oh,
worry,
really?
they've started putting this in sex toys. I'm not gonna lie.
What? Kate, not that I want to know, but what? What?
Remember back in the early 2000s, they came out with this real doll thing.
No, but
Well, I
I'll roll with
remember
it.
because of from HBO.
Oh,
HBO used to have that stuff on there every so often. And now they're apparently, I forget, I think I was listening to Joe Rogan and I heard about an AI built into it. I was like, I'm like, are people this desperate? And
well,
then, oh wait,
maybe.
no, I saw an app for it too, for your fake girlfriend on Instagram. Because we were talking about this, I have a screenshot of it. I could send it to you.
Oh my God, do
It
that.
was an ad. I was like, oh my God.
So what's the purpose of it? Is to make you feel loved?
No, because I think about it. Here's the bad part. So here's my problem with bots. Okay. And then I'll go back into the AI stuff. So the problem with bots is I've seen this happen a few times from a mental health perspective.
Right.
Okay. From a mental health perspective, I've seen like these influencers lose a bunch of followers and then they commit suicide. They had one off the Brooklyn Bridge like 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, that's messed up. And I'm like, well, are they sure they lost followers, or are they sure that the social media platform didn't go in and do a cleanup on the fake accounts?
Right.
All right. Because that'd be a pity if they committed suicide over fake accounts.
That would be.
You know, that's one case. Now, the other thing is the AI side of the house, you know, because I've done this from the cybersecurity side to where, because those that aren't geeks, they're ML, which teaches the AI. You can pollute the ML, machine learning, to have the AI make bad decisions.
Wow.
All right. So what if you did the same thing to one of these fake girlfriend bots? Because they have to be trained. So if you
Right.
corrupt the training module, then you've corrupted the whole thing.
So theoretically, what do these, if it was a well-trained girlfriend bot, what what would the well-trained girlfriend bot do? And then if we were to corrupt her, what would be like, just as a more tangible example for people like me who I'm like, what do you mean a girlfriend bot? Like,
I don't know. Truthfully, I can't even imagine the
right.
possibilities of what you can do. I mean, it's almost like when I saw that ad on Instagram, I'm like, should I play with this? And then
My answer is yes, because I have questions.
and then my wife will go, well, why are you getting this fake AI bot? This fake AI girlfriend?
Honey, just put the kid in some Versace. It'll be fine.
No, she'll be like, well, let me play with it for a while. Let me see how I can corrupt it.
Oh, is your wife into cybersecurity as well?
No,
No. Okay.
no,
Just thought
I
it'd be
purposely did that. That would be the worst thing ever.
I mean, smart. I like balance. I like diversity. Okay. So, wow. I don't even know how to, I don't know how to compute that, but that is,
Don't get ideas of an AI boyfriend.
no, I don't want one. I'm happily single. I do like myself right now. But it makes me wonder when you have AI bots like those, or an AI girlfriend or an AI boyfriend, and or the therapy through a bot, could you socially engineer people? You must be able to.
No,
Like,
well, that's the whole thing. It wouldn't be hard. They do it with deep fakes now. Okay.
mhm,
So I'll give you an example, the easiest way to do a deep fake. All right. So think of all the podcast software. All right. This is
yes.
the simplest way. And if you were to go in and you go, so an example, Descript, and you go in and modify what people say.
Oh no.
Okay. Now picture this. Okay. Now people use voice for two-factor authentication. So imagine us, all of them, all our captured voices on Clubhouse,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter Spaces, podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
interviews, taking that same thing and making us say anything to bypass the voice authentication on an app.
Wow.
This is the phase that we're at, and we've already dealt with it in the cybersecurity space to the
I've
point where they've done deep fakes on video calls.
My first experience with the deep fake, not personal. I was watching a TED talk, let's be honest. But it was my first experience of seeing something. The guy presented Barack Obama, 4 faces of Barack, and he's like, tell me which one was Barack.
Mhm.
And then he finished with none of them were. None of them were him. None of them were his what he said. None of them were his what. And I was floored because I was like, I'm trying to watch for mannerisms. I'm trying to watch for like intonation, inflex, like how you like change your words and sound your vocal timbre. No, it was. I mean, I from an audience member could not discern that all of them were fake. I had no idea.
Mhm.
I also leading question which one of these is fake, but it's I would have thought all 4 could have been real. That was my biggest takeaway. And so that is interesting. There's actually this technology where I recently saw an advertisement for it. It might be Adobe, it might be Google. I can't quite recall, but it says record anywhere and get studio quality sound. And this one girl goes through it and she samples a bunch of different things. And she was able to, I would say, show that it's not actually making studio quality sound. It is replicating your voice in an entirely new recording.
Mhm.
And I would, that is, that's the level of like, that's scary. I was, people could make you say whatever you wanted. And so,
Yep.
yeah, okay, voice authentication, but at what point can be like, Clarissa said this in a meeting. Clarissa said this on social media.
Yep.
And it is wild. It is wild. And there's even another guy who just developed another sort of AI where if I took a photo somewhere and I post on social media and I search for it, I can find people, this was released on Twitter like 2 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, where they can see other cameras that were recording at the same time. So you can see different angles of that picture being taken.
Mhm.
What? Okay, for what reason was that invented? That's insane. No one needs that.
I'd love to see that one, because what I've started to see, you and I were talking about this beforehand, all these deep fake accounts that were created on LinkedIn,
Yes.
on that security article. And the
Yep.
purpose, those were a whole different purpose. They were clone accounts. And it was basically to change the premise of all the data collection devices. So we all know all those main sites are out there getting web scraped. The problem is it's polluting databases that are perceived to be real. All right. So think of sales software like Sales Navigator and or Zoom Info, stuff that's used in sales to get the information on people. Well, now it's polluted with all this new data from all these fake accounts. Now, the other problem with that, and I started playing with this a long time ago to see how people are collecting it. If you were to look at my LinkedIn profile, it's totally controlled as to what it says. Not everything on it is real. And I tell people that I'm like, don't go by my LinkedIn profile. If this is real, I'll send you a real resume. Because this thing's purposely left out, things purposely obfuscated. Like
Right.
it has me with a master's degree and an undergrad. I never went to college. I've taught myself everything.
Right.
Okay. Red flags right there. I've also controlled the timeline as to where it's at so you can't guess my age.
Wow.
It's the amount of information.
So 28.
28. That's it. Yep.
28. That's it.
28.
That's all. And for those who missed the non-recorded part of this podcast, what Tom was referring to is that there's been people, high profile people, have their profiles duplicated on platforms where we don't know necessarily who's who. It could really look like someone you know or the person you think it is, and it's not. It's a fake.
Right. But the problem is they'll say they're the head of this part of an organization and have an email that looks like that and
Yes.
a phone number. So
Wow.
if they have to call, all right, this is where the real problem is for organizations. If they have to call for cash transfers, it will go to the fake person to approve it. All right. And that's one of the bigger problems.
What a time to be alive. Okay, cash transfers. This is a great question. This actually leads into one of the articles we were talking about before the podcast. If I was to send you $50, how would you accept? What would be the best way for me to send you money? What would you trust?
What would I trust?
Cash emailed. Is that the safest thing to do right now?
Cash or the other one where it's actually tied to banks and there's credit to it would probably be PayPal, because we've seen Venmo and Zelle where if money's transferred through them, they won't pay it. There's no, because they're just a middleware. And
they're a conduit.
Yeah, and they're not responsible for it. And we started seeing all these big banks that would not pay for it and people that are getting burnt out from that.
Right. And so for listeners, Zelle and Venmo are cash transfer apps, essentially. It's really popular among younger humans, young people. And
so us 28-year-olds.
That's us 28-year-olds, Venmo me for dinner. And it's not a secure platform, because if they get hacked, they aren't responsible for the money, which is what you were saying. What was that Zelle situation about?
Right. So essentially it was going through all the different banks that are not paying it out, because of that specific reason. The security problem wasn't with the bank. It wasn't with their software. Zelle is a middleware that's not FDIC insured. The bank is FDIC insured, but you chose to use that middleware, which the bank you put in your account information into that middleware. So the bank is not responsible.
What has people choose middleware like Zelle or Venmo over using an e-transfer from a bank? What would have people choose them?
Takes too long, and then the cost of the transfer. Hence why they've kind of done the same with PayPal, because they don't want to pay those transfer fees.
I don't know what I have for a banking situation, but I don't get charged for e-transfers, and that's awesome. That's incredible. And I'm grateful because I had no idea that wouldn't have even occurred to me as an obstacle. But because fees are a barrier for people, like if you're younger and $5 feels like a lot of money or $3 feels like a lot of money, like I'm gonna transfer you $20. I don't want to transfer you, I don't want to be 23. Well, cut the service fees, all of a sudden you look like the type of service I would like to use, which is
Mhm.
very fascinating.
Now,
Very
the
fascinating.
problem is, what normally happens is they can transfer you, say, $500
Okay.
and say, I made a mistake. So when they transfer it back, they get your banking info and then they can drain your account.
Wow.
Those are the things that people don't think about. And it just being this here's the biggest problem about being in this industry. I tell
Mhm.
people don't get in cybersecurity unless you plan on a life of endless learning because this stuff changes so fast.
Yeah, that is crazy. I
Mhm.
mean, you have to be curious and willing to learn because it moves fast. It moves so fast.
The hacks change all the time. I mean, even the AI stuff. The US just came out with an AI for they'll call it an AI Bill of Rights that they're starting to initiate what we should do on what we can do with AI. To me, it scares me that government's getting involved with it.
I just AI with rights seems so strange because it's not real. It's
Oh,
literally called artificial. Is
well,
that just me being ignorant? I could be.
well, it's funny because Elon Musk it was the beginning of the week he came out with his robot.
Okay. You wanted to talk about, okay, what happened with Elon? I have been buried in paint colors that I don't like and a broken computer and so what happened this week?
No, he showcased his robot.
Okay, he showcased a robot and
Right.
now
And
he
then we
thinks
have
it
an
should have
AI Bill of
rights.
Rights in the same week.
Do
He
you
actually
think
showcased it Friday, but
okay,
then the AI Bill of Rights thing came out yesterday, and it
and
became a topic of conversation.
does Elon believe I don't and you may not know
Oh
this.
no,
Does he believe
he's weirdly enough he always talks about where AI is going to go, and it scares him. Same thing
right?
with robots. You know, advantage of it, he has to take advantage of it. If he's doing self-driving cars, it
Right.
had tons of data to learn.
So do you
I mean,
think Elon would be pro Bill of Rights for AI?
I think he would be. See, he's an interesting guy. I always look at him. I'm like, man, that whole PayPal mafia got crew. They're all freaking. They all blow my mind. You got Thiel, you got Musk, and the rest of them. And it's like, but those are the two that come up all the time. And then when you start to see where they've gone and the direction that they've gone, I mean, you turn around. All right, look at Thiel. He's a big player with Palantir, and Palantir is just AI for decision making. And going back to that whole story with changing people's mind and influence, they always said, "Oh, Palantir is bad." Like I look at it, I'm like, if you ask me, it's a freaking great tool. Okay, the problem is it's not the tool that's bad; it's the intent of the person that has access to it.
It's like saying money is evil.
Right,
Money's just a tool. And
it's a
so
tool.
AI is also a tool. And I still like, I mean, we're using AI for some of our products and services right now. And the one thing AI hasn't picked up for us is nuance. There's like, and so that's the biggest thing I've noticed with the AI we have, and it could just be the quality of tech. I don't know, but
Mhm.
I'm like, there's nuance that's gotten missed that it doesn't know, and I don't know how to teach it, and I don't know. Yeah, but here's what my observations are, and so with the Palantir and that social decision making, it's like or social engineering, it's almost it would work in a world of a benevolent dictatorship, right? Where it makes sense to like align the people but how can you who really knows what how to govern the decision in a way that's going to have the best possible outcome because you any direction you go has unintended consequences.
Right.
They just do. And so how do you play out every possible outcome without putting that risk out there? I don't have the answer, obviously, but it just makes me think, well, we can think we're doing something good only to find out after the fact it wasn't so good.
Well, here's the problem. When we talk about this stuff, we're only talking about a single country.
Right.
Okay. So that's us creating controls inside of our country. Doesn't mean our adversaries are going to have those same controls.
Right.
Okay. And
And,
that's the bigger problem.
and so does that put us at an advantage or at a disadvantage?
It's a disadvantage because then they know our controls. And then
Right.
if you know somebody's controls, you know how
Can
to exploit them.
exploit them.
Right. So if I go into, I'll give you an example from the physical security side. Say, Tom, I need you to break into this building, but you have to do it in such a way where you bypass the security guards and they're nice to you. That's easy. Do you know how? I find out the people that work in that building. Okay. I pick the right time of day. I'm like, the pose is a florist. I'm here to bring flowers for so-and-so for their birthday. Okay. Now, guess what you're going to do? You're going to know that person left the building because you've already done your OSINT on it. We'll see them walk out. We'll spoof call the guard from her desk. And then, you're nice to them. Or you go to play the long game and you build a rapport with the guards. Okay.
Wow.
The way you build a rapport is, you come in, you talk to them. Occasionally, you'll bring them like food or drinks. That's influencing them. They already know who you are. Once they know who you are, they give you access. Or if you come in all the time, say a T-Mobile shirt, they'll automatically assume you work with T-Mobile. Okay. Maybe they know the people in the building use T-Mobile. All right. So then they let you in.
Wow.
It's building trust and influence.
Evil.
But that's the way this stuff works.
Right.
Okay? This stuff has been going on way before tech. All right. It's the whole trade craft for spies and the way they've always operated. It's not like, oh, the internet came out and this is happening. I'm like, no, the internet's a tool.
Yeah, the internet came out and just amplified what was already so.
Right.
Like cheating was happening before the internet. People were sending messages to each other before the internet.
Mm-hmm.
People were finding out how to sneak into buildings, finding out how to
I
get.
didn't send you that one. Oh, I got to send you that one. Oh, this
my
guy
goodness.
created 40,000 fake accounts on Tinder and started targeting all these women in New York City.
I think there's a I haven't watched it. There's something on Netflix, I think, called The Tinder Swindler. And
Yeah, there was that. But this guy did it using AI. And he started using lines from all famous, well-known actors, ladies, man, stuff like that, like James Bond and all of those.
Oh, wow. That's smart.
I'm gonna send that. I'll send that to you after this.
It
was a TikTok video, so that's what made me laugh even more.
It is, I mean, my general rule of thumb that I don't love sharing because people think I trust them. But the truth is I don't really trust a lot. I don't trust a lot. And you got to ask questions. You got to be prepared to look under the hood. And you also have to prepare to look at what you're seeing and ask yourself, is it really true? Is it really true? Is it, because there's so much room for things to not be true. And in the world of trust and influence, we actually talked before this as well. Given that we chatted for 10 minutes before the podcast started, we covered a lot of ground. We talked about how there's stuff in cybersecurity news that's big deals. Like, was it last week, the TV breach?
Yeah.
Is that where yeah. So what is happening? What's going on? Like, how come
it's a whole different game. So it wasn't that TD Bank got hacked. It was more of an insider threat that got access to customer data. But they were quick and vigilant enough that they had caught them.
Wow.
All right. And this is the type of stuff that happened. And it's also happened before. I mean, the bigger one was Capital One when it was all over the news. It was an actual insider threat that had access.
Wow.
Okay? We always forget that. Well, who is the person that has access? Were we just too lackadaisical, or did something trigger that person? What? and that's the whole problem, because everybody figures technology is going to solve the problem. Well, but then if you buy all this technology and you put cheap labor behind it, it goes back to the old saying, skilled labor isn't cheap, cheap labor isn't skilled. Okay. I have literally seen in my past to where, so I can't go into details, but it was an AI model and it was done by a third party company that was managing it. And they assumed everything was called a false positive. Now they kept marking these things as real false positives, but they were true positives. So what happened is the AI model just started to say, okay, this is no good automatically. And these real attacks that were coming in, it would never pick up on after a while. Okay, and that's some of the problems. Now, when I talked about the AI Bill of Rights, I would prefer it being more of a guideline. And then in the US, they have all these different pillars based on Homeland Security. I would prefer it if they broke it down into AI can be used this way and this way in each of these areas, because we still need it, And I think one of the benefits, like I'll go back to Palantir, one of the bigger benefits I saw that, Alex Karp did, he literally gave Palantir to all the hospitals during COVID to start collecting all that data and doing that research.
Right.
We freaking tame this. Okay. You were just complaining about it before, how bad it is. Well, here it is doing good. What do you think we saw in the middle of last year? IBM and Watson they weren't going to use it for healthcare anymore. But the week before that, nobody paid attention to the news of IBM partnering with Palantir for that.
Whoa.
I mean, and that's kind of what works best for the decisions that need to be made.
Right.
Okay. And that's always the tough part. Who builds out the best models? Who helps make those best decisions? Everybody gets scared of the camera stuff. I'm like, man, I could show you how to bypass these cameras all the time. Like, your biggest problem is you aren't situationally aware to know when you're being watched. Okay.
Yeah.
You walk around the neighborhood, how many Ring cameras do you see?
They're everywhere.
Okay. There's two problems there.
Okay.
One, you're talking in front of that camera. It's picking up on your conversations. You don't know that. Okay.
Right.
So are you more afraid of the government, or are you more afraid of Amazon keeping all your data? Because now they have all your conversations when you're walking by.
Sure explains a lot of my ads.
I mean, how many times have you talked on your phone? Okay. I laugh at people like, I don't understand this. I'm talking about something and all of a sudden the ads are coming up. I'm like, well, what do you have on your phone? You have Messenger or WhatsApp? They're like, well, why does that matter? I was like, it's all tied into freaking Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for it to operate, it has to have voice enabled. So
Yep.
It's always listening. And you clicked on, you accept the terms of service. You just didn't read them.
Yep. You didn't know you agreed to this. And I mean, terms of service are just such a painful thing to read too. Like, it's insane. And it's microscopic font on your phone. And you just need to get a hold of your aunt, or you just want to talk to your friends. And it's just, that desire for convenience and connection, we prioritize over understanding what risk does convenience pose to us.
Yep. And it will always be that way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I look at, in Alberta, we, a few years ago, we started centralizing identification. And it was after I had gone through some pretty intense stuff involving police, where it was like, don't keep any of your ID together. They gave me things to keep me safe in my home and keep me safe from what I needed to be kept safe from. Mm-hmm. Change where you are, like, always keep your keys in the same spot. So if you ever need to escape, this is what you need to do, but it shouldn't be right at your front door, because that's easy to grab if someone breaks and enters, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm going through all these things, and they basically told me to scatter my stuff strategically, know exactly where it is, but don't keep everything in the same place. So the second we came out in Alberta with centralized identification, I just went, what? This is the opposite of what I was told to do to keep myself safe. So now I'm putting everything in one spot. And so it felt, and I mean, I can't really speak to it because what do I know? But based on what I had learned from that experience, it just seemed so available for risk, available for not good things. So do you have any insights onto centralized identification and what you think about it?
Right. So we're starting to see a lot of that in the US. So they came out with called the Real ID Act. Okay.
Okay.
So it's basically you validating who you are for you to have real ID on your ID so you can travel anywhere you need to without having your passport or anything else.
Okay.
I'm like, it sounds super convenient, but guess what? It's not, because now you've just validated everything anyway. Now, what people don't realize, like where I live, so I'm not living in New York because I don't want to pay their insane taxes. I live 15 minutes outside of New York and New Jersey. Well, guess what? Guess what all the states have in common in the US? They sell all your driver's license information to data brokers.
Okay. So walk me through this. So they sell it to data brokers. How does that impact you now with?
The Real ID.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder because I'm like, wow, you have all these illegal people coming in, but they'll give them IDs. They just can't technically get a real ID.
So whose identification are they using?
Right. And
Right.
it's done quite often, or who's the crooked person behind the counter to do that? There's always crooked people that are sitting there making fake stuff. Right? Or are they replicating it? See, the problem I have is I probably have the most generic name on the planet. I can tell you between New York and New Jersey, there's 1,972 of us, and 4 of us share the same birthday.
Wow. 1972 and 4 share the same birthday. Have you ever met them? That would be very interesting.
One of them.
One of them.
Yep. That was the weirdest thing ever, but yeah.
Wow. What was that like? I mean, you said weird, but like, how did you meet this person? Did you just be like, yo, we're the same person?
No, at a certain point in my life, they were my next door neighbor.
You have got to be kidding me.
Nope.
Same name, same birthday, and a neighbor.
Yep.
What are the statistics? That is a glitch in the matrix. What?
Yep.
That is crazy.
But we weren't living here. We were living in a different state at the time.
But still.
Right. And I had lived in one part of New York and he lived a much different part of New York.
Wow. What is small, like bizarrely small world? Well, apparently Tom Ryan's like the same neighborhood.
Well, the bad part was at one time it jammed me up a little bit at the airports because it was also somebody with the same name in the IRA in Ireland. So that did not work out well too in the airports.
No, I don't imagine. And Ryan is a very Irish last name, so that's too bad. That's too bad. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about your business so that people can find you. You are a valuable tool and resources for businesses, for entrepreneurs, for people who wanting to understand and maybe lock themselves up in the world of cybersecurity, get a little safer. So you have asymmetric response, asymmetric-response.com.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me a little bit about what that business does and how people can find you and use you.
So as you can see, the site hasn't launched yet.
Oh, yes.
There's a reason for that.
Why is that?
The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn, and it will probably be launching soon.
Excellent. Well, it looks great. The robot with the keyboard is very intense. So Tom Ryan is findable. He is connected to me on LinkedIn. So if you need to verify his identity, I'm only friends, I think, with one Tom Ryan on LinkedIn. What a wealth of knowledge. You've managed to trick people into believing you were a female and they offered you jobs. And I think you got
Do I look like a sexy female?
You're rocking it.
Am I?
I think so. And it goes to show that if you are curious and and you're willing to ask some more questions and dig in a little deeper, you can find holes in virtually everything.
Yep.
And everything. And again, Tom mentioned he doesn't have an undergrad, doesn't have a master's degree. This is self-taught. So that illusion that you need to go to school is just an illusion. You can choose to if you want to, but Tom has made a name for himself And okay, fine, he doesn't talk a black hat, but whatever. He's hella employed and his kid wears Versace. So he's doing okay, guys. He's doing okay.
Oh, you should see what a great dancer she is too.
Oh, really? How old is she now?
22 months.
22 months. Oh my God, she's getting so big.
She's tall. She's 28 pounds and can easily lift a 20-pound kettlebell.
Oh my God. That's my kind of girl. That's my kind of girl. That's watch out, world.
Around her. She
cracked
me twice in the face last night. I was like,
oh my goodness.
I tried to put her to bed. That didn't happen.
No. You know, sometimes children are worthy opponents. Is what I like to call them. You are a worthy opponent.
Great way to lose weight.
It's a great way to lose weight. Is that what happened? Is that you had a kid and you just ran after and all of a sudden fell off?
No, here's the biggest problem with cyber. All right. And I always tell people, and I think one guy that does it best is this guy, Dave Kennedy, with this company, Trusted Sec. It's this whole big movement now for, hacker health, because we're sitting here behind a computer for so long, we don't get away.
No.
And what are we doing to improve our health? Because and sadly enough, there's a lot of guys in the industry dropping in their 50s. And it's because, all right, are you sedentary all the time? Are you go out and doing stuff? What are you doing to improve your health? And I kind of got on that kick.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that made me realize that was when I got COVID. Right. When that thing beat my butt. And I was like, it kind of prevented you from working out. So it deterred me for like a year. And then when I get back into it, it's like, boom. So I said, you know what, if you're going, you go all in, you get a health coach, you do this, and then you start learning, and once you get into that, your mind just clears up a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, all right, boom, I can do this. I started time boxing stuff. I started, all right, this time. You picked Friday night. I'm like, what kind of girl is this? She's picking me on a Friday night. I'm like,
I told you I'm leading a crazy life right now. I don't know what's.
I know you're like every other female I know right now. It's like it's like
I'm on fire.
You're on fire, and you have to go out and prove yourself, and you're crushing it. That's a key thing.
Minus that paint job I did. My God, I'm working through renos, and it's okay.
But we learn from mistakes.
It's true, and you know what? I will say, I was going through it, and old Clarissa would have. I know the order you're supposed to paint, and there's certain things that weren't doable, and so I accepted that as a risk. I was like, that's supposed to be the prize, and this is a situation. So when I was doing what I should have done first today, and I made an error, I was like, well, there's so many things I don't like about this, but now I know. Now I know this, and it makes it that much easier. And there are so many things my parents have told me in the past that until I experienced them, I didn't understand the why. And even if you tell a kid why or a person why, sometimes that memory isn't as locked in and as loaded. And your ability to rapidly transform your performance often happens in the world of doing when you're in the moment. So whether you're swimming, you're diving, you're hitting the water, and you're not on that straight angle, you feel it, you lift. I decided to give CrossFit a whirl. Oh, that's so humbling.
My friend Jack, she was telling me, yeah, you should get into F45. I'm like, huh, what? Yeah. And then you look at Dave Kennedy, it's like he goes from the Chubber cybersecurity guy to Lou Ferrigno.
There's really effective things out there, but when you start them, it's like there's a lot of learning. But if you don't try it, you're not going to get better at it. And you got to try it. You got to be willing to try and willing to be a beginner. I went in being like, at this particular gym, I happen to be in the middle of the pack for the age, but I also happen to be like the most beginner, and you have to be willing to suck in front of your peers. And there is nothing short of everyone's doing reps at different times because people are different speeds. And I have to be okay with looking like a loser, trying to figure out if my body is doing the right motion for a snatch or a whatever the hell they're called. There's so many different words. It's going in and learning Greek, but you got to be willing to do it. Otherwise you just stay the same. And I don't want to stay the same.
Nope, nobody does.
I don't want to stay the same. Hopefully not. I hope some people don't like change. I'm I wouldn't say I love change, but I would say I don't like stagnancy. So
Yep.
I don't like that. Oh, Tom, I don't know how we took up as much time. I'm way over. I'm so sorry. But it's such a pleasure to chat and connect with you. You are so interesting. Please go look up Paige. Or sorry. Why did I just blank on her name?
Robin Sage.
Robin Sage. I called her Paige. New name.
Just Google Robin Sage experiment.
Robin Sage experiment. I found it on a bunch of platforms. There's a bunch of things to talk about it. Tom is the reason that exists, and it's still being used today. And it's important to look at the things like, do you trust what you're seeing on the internet? And a lot of things can look real. And so learn about social engineering, learn about how to protect yourself online. There is a head of cyber defense or a head of defense that's focused on cyber warfare, which I didn't even know was a thing in the States, but there is. And so consider that if America is willing to invest in a head of defense or whatever the title is for cyber warfare or cybersecurity, that should tell us that we should know more about it. And the truth is a lot of us don't. I'm definitely one of those people who does not know enough about it. So thank you so much for coming on. Any final thoughts you'd like to share before we part ways?
No, I mean, we should stay in touch more often. This was awesome.
Every time we talk, it's such a hoot. We've done this a couple times and I'm like, oh, we need to talk more.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. Life takes over.
Yeah.
My munchkin takes over. I hear her downstairs, and she likes to wake me up in the morning.
Yeah.
She'll flick on the light and go, da, da, da.
Aww.
That means she wants me to feed her. And then as soon as I'm feeding her, she goes running to the mom. She's like, bye.
You've served your purpose. Thank you, sir. You served your purpose. Excellent. Well, thank you again. And if you're looking for Tom, it's Tom Ryan. And on LinkedIn, he'll also be connected with Asymmetric Response. So you'll know that's the right guy. And he's connected to me. And again, thank you so much for popping on. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Have a great one.
You too.
If this podcast has landed with you, served you, provided value, please let us know. Give us a like, subscribe, share it with a friend that you know it will make a difference for. We are here to be a contribution and a service to others. We cannot wait to see you next time. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care.